With the first pick,
The Indiana Fever selects
Caitlyn Clark, University of Iowa.
What if the most dominant force in women's basketball, someone who redefined the game, shattered every record, and carried an entire era on her back?
Their championship moment, finding their flex again, their championship moxie again.
Looked straight at the brightest star of today and spoke just 4 words. 4 words that changed everything. No coaching, no praise, just the truth. This is the story of Cheryl Miller and Caitlyn Clark, a collision of generations, a passing of a torch, and a moment that says more about the future of the sport than any trophy ever could. Who is considered the dominant force in women's basketball from the 1980s who redefined the game? A. Diana Taurasi, B. Cheryl Miller, C. Sue Bird D. Tamika Catchings. Think you nailed it? Drop your score in the comments and see if you're a true basketball history fan. I'll reveal to you later. Cheryl Miller, the lost legend. Forget 2024 and the arena lights.
Here we go. One of the most anticipated matchups in the history of women's college basketball.
This story starts somewhere far older, far quieter. It starts in the early 1980s, in a gym at the University of Southern California, where a teenager from Riverside, California, was doing things on a basketball court that nobody had ever seen a woman do before. Cheryl Miller wasn't just good. She wasn't just talented. She was a complete and total force of nature who made the entire sport look small around her.
She was one of the greatest college players ever, a scholastic icon who helped the game climb to new popularity.
From 1982 to 1986, she did things at USC that still feel like myths when you say them out loud. 2 national championships, National Player of the Year 3 separate times, a career total of 3,018 points and 1,534 rebounds. But the raw numbers don't even scratch the surface of what made her special. She played with an aggression, a creativity, and a hunger that nobody on the women's side of the game had ever brought before. She could score from anywhere, rebound against players bigger and stronger, and take over a game the same way the greatest NBA players of her era could.
She had an outstanding series. Cheryl Miller with the turnaround. Cheryl Miller, keep in mind, she is only a freshman.
And she did it with a personality that made you want to watch every single second she was on the floor. Are you ready for it? The answer might surprise you. The answer is B. Did you get it right? Comment your guess. By 1986, Sports Illustrated did something they had never done before. They named Cheryl Miller the best college basketball player in the country. Not the best female player. The best player, period, men included. That is the level she was operating on.
Trying to hang on and win their first national championship. And Cheryl Miller blocked it, picked it right out of the air.
Then she took that same dominance to the international stage and brought home a gold medal with Team USA at the 1984 Olympics in Los Angeles, was cementing a legacy that put her in a category very few athletes in any sport ever reach. Her brother Reggie Miller, himself an NBA Hall of Famer who hit some of the most clutch shots in playoff history.
Reggie Miller on fire, swishing it in. Reggie Miller, ball, corner pocket, Reggie.
Has said publicly and repeatedly for decades that his sister was the better player. That's not family loyalty talking. That's the truth. And yet, despite all of it, despite being arguably the most dominant women's basketball player who had ever lived, the world simply was not built yet to give her back what she deserved. The WNBA wasn't founded until April of 1996. It didn't tip off its first game until June of 1997. That was 11 years after Miller graduated from USC, 11 years after she walked off that college court as the most dominant player in the sport. And by the time that professional league in America finally came to life,
She creates so many things out there, and they're going to let her shoot, USC.
Miller with the pull-up jumper, buries it. And out to Alkek.
her chronic knee injuries had already forced her into retirement in the late 1980s when she was still in her prime. She never got to be the face of a professional league, never got to sign the endorsement deals that come with that visibility, never got to play in front of sold-out American arenas as a pro while fans bought her jersey and told their kids they were there the night she played. The infrastructure wasn't there. The platform wasn't there, and by the time all of those things finally arrived, her playing days were already behind her. She transitioned into coaching and broadcasting, led the Phoenix Mercury to the WNBA Finals in 1998, and carved out a respected second career. But underneath all of it, there was always this quiet and undeniable truth. She was one of the greatest players who ever lived. And she never got to play in the league that was built for players exactly like her.
Cheryl Miller says the team's success has nothing to do with women power. She gives credit to the X factor.
Clark shakes the game. By 2020, a new force had arrived. A freshman from Clarksville, Indiana, walks onto the court at the University of Iowa and starts doing something that nobody in women's basketball, and honestly, nobody in college basketball at any level, had done in quite this way before. Caitlyn Clark didn't just score, she performed. She played with this unshakable confidence that felt almost confrontational, like she was daring the entire world to keep underestimating women's basketball.
Here's Clark. She fires.
While she systematically dismantled every argument anyone had ever made for doing so. Every deep three-pointer from 30 feet out wasn't just 2 points on a scoreboard, it was a message. Every no-look pass into traffic wasn't just a highlight, it was proof. And the country didn't just notice, it stopped everything and stared. The numbers she put up during her 4 years at Iowa were the kind that make you read them twice just to make sure you didn't miscount.
And Cunningham is down behind the play, but they've got Caitlyn Clark.
She finished her college career with 3,951 points, becoming the all-time leading scorer in Division I basketball history, men's or women's, surpassing Pete Maravich's record that had stood since 1970. Let that sink in for a second. A record that survived over 50 years, that outlasted generations of NBA legends, college icons, and countless celebrated careers, fell to a woman from Iowa who wasn't even done yet when the conversation started. She averaged 31.6 points per game in her final college season. She took Iowa to back-to-back national championship games in 2023 and 2024.
Pass, but we've seen Caitlyn Clark time and again.
10-0 right hook from Iowa to begin the national championship game.
And along the way, she did something that no player at any level had managed to do in recent memory. She made people who had never once watched a women's basketball game pull out their phones, find the channel, and sit down. The 2023 Elite Eight game between Iowa and Louisville drew over 4 million viewers on ESPN, numbers that would have been considered exceptional for a men's tournament game just a few years earlier. Then her semifinal matchup against South Carolina in 2024 pulled in 15.1 million viewers, becoming the most watched women's college basketball game ever recorded at that point. And then her final college game, also against South Carolina in the championship.
And Caitlyn Clark says goodbye to college basketball.
Shattered even that ceiling with nearly 19 million people watching. To put that in real perspective, that number outrated the average viewership of the first round of the men's NCAA tournament. The sport wasn't just growing anymore, it was erupting, and Clark was the reason the ground was shaking. But here's what made her story hit differently than just another great player putting up great numbers. Clark was doing all of this in the full glare of the social media era, where every game clip spread instantly, where every performance was debated in real time across every platform.
Quick with her footwork, reads the D, demands a double but scores in isolation coverage.
And where the pressure of public attention moves faster and hits harder than anything previous generations of players ever had to navigate. She was signing NIL deals with Nike, Gatorade, and State Farm before she had played a single professional minute. She was appearing on magazine covers, late-night shows, and sports broadcasts that had rarely, if ever, made room for a women's college basketball player before. She walked into the 2024 WNBA draft as the consensus #1 overall pick and was selected by the Indiana Fever.
In the 2024 WNBA draft, the Indiana Fever select Caitlyn Clark.
While the whole country watched like it was a cultural event, not just a sports transaction, Caitlyn Clark had stepped into a world that was finally ready to give a women's basketball player Everything that Cheryl Miller's generation built toward, but never got to touch themselves. The same foundation that Miller and those before her had quietly, painfully, and selflessly laid down over decades was now holding up something the entire country could finally see clearly. And that's exactly when these two worlds, separated by almost 40 years, but connected by something far deeper than time, collided in a way nobody saw coming. Caitlyn Clark and the torch of legacy. The first time Cheryl Miller and Caitlyn Clark actually met was not at an arena or a practice facility or some major televised event. It was at the Honda Awards ceremony in Los Angeles in 2023, the night Clark was honored with the Honda Cup as the top female collegiate athlete across all sports. Clark had just finished a jaw-dropping junior season where she scored over 1,000 points.
Arena record, a career record. She's now the fastest player to score 1,000 points in Big Ten history.
Led Iowa to the national championship game and made the entire country stop whatever they were doing and pay attention. The spotlight on her was already enormous. The expectations were already stacking up faster than she could manage them. And Cheryl Miller, who was also at that ceremony, saw exactly what was happening to this young woman. She didn't clap from across the room and leave it at that. And she walked straight over to Clark and started talking. What Miller told her that night had nothing to do with basketball. She said one thing above everything else, and it was this: have fun, no matter all the static. Just make sure you find that quiet place. That was it. No breakdown of pick and roll defense, no tips on reading a zone, just that. And the reason those words carried so much weight was because of who they came from and what she had already lived through. Miller wasn't giving Clark advice from a textbook or from some coaching seminar. She was giving her a warning wrapped in wisdom. She was saying, I know what this spotlight feels like when it stops being a blessing and starts being a weight, and I need you to be ready for that before it swallows you whole. Miller later explained her thinking publicly, and she was completely direct about it. She said the crown Clark was wearing was heavy, and the wild part was that Clark never put it on herself. It was placed on her by a sport desperate for a mainstream breakout moment, by media looking for the next big story, by fans who needed something to rally around, by an entire industry that loaded all of its hopes and expectations onto the shoulders of one young woman who just wanted to play basketball. Miller understood that dynamic better than almost anyone because she had felt it herself during her own era, when every single thing she did was analyzed and talked about like it carried the entire future of women's basketball inside it. She knew exactly how that kind of pressure could quietly rob you of the joy that made you fall in love with the game in the first place. And she was not going to let that happen to Caitlyn Clark without saying something first. The weight of the crown. Then May 24th, 2024 arrived, and the weight of everything Clark had been carrying finally needed somewhere to land. The Indiana Fever had lost their first 5 games of the season. Clark was adjusting to the physicality of the WNBA, getting hit with hard fouls, getting targeted by defenders who were physical and experienced in ways that college players simply were not.
The ball went to the middle of the floor, and Caitlyn Clark struggling right there. You hate to see that.
The criticism was coming from everywhere at once. Some of it was legitimate basketball analysis. Some of it was jealousy dressed up as critique. Some of it was uglier than that, rooted in things that had absolutely nothing to do with basketball at all. It was a brutal stretch by any measure. The kind of stretch that can crack a player who doesn't have the right foundation underneath them. And then the Fever beat the Los Angeles Sparks 78-73 for Clark's first professional win, and Cheryl Miller happened to be in the building. Miller hunted Clark down after that game and told her to savor it. Use this as a formula, she said, but keep being you no matter what. Keep being you. Keep being you. That phrase repeated itself like a heartbeat, like Miller needed Clark to feel it in her bones and not just hear it with her ears. Because that was the real lesson underneath everything else. The talent was never in question. Clark had proven that at every level she had ever played. What Miller wanted to protect was something more fragile and more valuable than any physical skill. She wanted to protect Clark's identity, her sense of self, the version of her that existed before the spotlight turned her into a symbol instead of a person. Miller had watched pressure slowly reshape players over the years, had seen the weight of expectation quietly squeeze the joy Out of athletes who started with nothing but love for the game, she was not going to let Clark become another story like that. A few months later came the WNBA All-Star Weekend in Phoenix, July 2024, and everything crystallized into a moment that felt genuinely cinematic. Miller had been selected as the coach for Team WNBA in the exhibition game against Team USA.
How cool is it to be as a head coach for Team WNBA as a member of the Ring of Honor for the Phoenix Mercury?
And Clark ended up on her roster. So here was the woman who built the foundation the sport was standing on, and here was the woman finally living the professional career that foundation was always meant to support, standing on the same sideline, each wearing the same colors in the same building. The visual alone was powerful enough to stop people cold. But what happened when Clark spotted Miller across the floor was what made it unforgettable. She walked straight to her and said, "Finally, someone who's on my side." And Miller pulled her in and told her how proud she was. In that one exchange, everything about their connection made complete sense. Clark had been navigating months of criticism, unrealistic expectations, and noise from every direction. And in all of that chaos, Cheryl Miller was one of the few people in her orbit who understood what she was actually going through. Not as an outsider analyzing the situation from a distance, but as someone who had felt that same pressure in her own chest during her own era and survived it. Miller was generous in every word she said about Clark during All-Star Weekend. She praised her basketball IQ, her competitiveness, her ability to elevate the players around her. But she didn't avoid the harder conversation either. She said publicly what she had been telling Clark privately for over a year, that the crown was heavy, that Clark didn't choose it, that it was placed on her by a sport and a culture that needed a breakthrough moment, and that the real challenge wasn't learning to play at the professional level, because that part was coming naturally. The real challenge was learning how to protect her joy while carrying all of that weight at the same time. The All-Star game ended with Team WNBA taking the win and Clark playing well throughout. But nobody who watched that day was really thinking about the final score. The image that stayed with people was Cheryl Miller on the sideline.
We got a game and we got a competitive Cheryl Miller, one of the greatest to ever do it.
Talking to Clark during timeouts, steadying her, guiding her, the way someone walks beside a person carrying something heavy and just lets them know they don't have to do it alone. Building on her legacy. What makes this entire story so layered is the generosity sitting right at the center of it. Cheryl Miller had every reason to look at Caitlyn Clark's career and feel the sting of everything she missed. The professional league, the endorsement deals, the mainstream visibility, the sold-out arenas, the national broadcasts that tens of millions of people tuned into. All of it arrived after her playing days were over, and none of that was her fault. She had done everything right. She had been more than talented enough. She had been historic. The world just wasn't ready to receive her the way it received Clark. That's a reality that could have curdled into bitterness over the decades, and plenty of people would completely understand if it had. But Miller never let it go there. Instead, she turned everything she lost into something she could give. She took the pressure she survived, the lessons she learned the hard way, the wisdom that came from carrying a sport on her shoulders during an era when nobody was watching, and she handed all of it to Clark like a gift with no strings attached. Clark is building the house that Miller's generation poured the foundation for. She is standing in rooms that Miller helped make possible without ever getting to step inside herself. And the fact that Miller can stand outside that house with nothing but pride and support and genuine love for what Clark is building says something about her character that goes way beyond sports entirely. It says something about what it means to love something bigger than yourself, to give everything you have to a cause that outlasts your own chapter in it, and to find meaning not just in what you accomplished, but in what you made possible for the people who came after you. Miller built the foundation. Clark is building the house. And when they stand together, you can see how much respect flows in both directions and how both roles matter just as deeply as the other. And so the torch has been passed, but the story is far from over. One generation has spoken, another has listened, learned, and begun to carry the weight. But how far can that voice travel before the world tests it? How many more moments, victories, and trials will shape the path from brilliance to legend? In a game where every move is watched, every word measured, and every decision echoes beyond the court, one question remains. Who will rise to meet it next? And will they be ready?